Just a minute. Step outside of my house. Okay, why did oh! Oh!
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop! Kill him! You're trying to kill him! He's bleeding! A few years ago, Vince and I were just a happy middle-aged couple. I had the corner office at work. Vince had his own business. We had 4 grown kids. We had a toy store. And our first grandchild. We had a comfortable home in a riverside neighborhood. We took vacations. Life was great. And then there was a knock on the door. It was almost 6 o'clock and I'd just gotten home from work. I was really happy because our daughter and grandson were going to join us for dinner, as well as our son-in-law, who was going to join us a little bit later after the toy store closed. And I got home, I came in, I put the ham in the oven to heat it up, started getting ready to make a couple of side dishes, and I was always really happy to see the baby after work because things weren't going that well at work at that time. And when I sat down with Vince to watch a quick video, there was this loud knock on the door. The police had come to our front door that evening to serve what they claimed to be a failure to appear warrant, and noticed that they have no warrant in hand. It wasn't about drugs or robbery or murder. It was related to a charge less severe than a speeding ticket. And yet one of the officers stands off to the side and appears to shake a can of mace just before they knock on the door. When I opened the door, neither of them said they were there to serve a warrant. Klatka said, "We want to talk to Carl." And I said I would see if he was home. And the first thought in my head was, oh my God, what if Athena pulls into the driveway with William? What are they going to do? So my first order of business was to call her and make sure that she didn't come over. And it's a good thing I caught her because she was very close to pulling into the driveway.
I wanted to make sure that if my daughter were to pull up, that I would be out there just in case.
Immediately after I closed the door, the officers departed from the doorway. But they weren't going anywhere. And it was all about this. A broken second-generation iPod. You can buy one on eBay for $25.
It turns out that this whole mess was because of a broken second-generation iPod that my son found in a public bathroom while he was waiting to pick up his girlfriend who worked there. He went into the bathroom. It was sitting there. There was a wire hanging out of it, and it appeared that it didn't work. So he pawned it for $15. $15. And as I understand it, a couple months before they came over here, the gentleman who misplaced it or whatever already had it back. Now, you would think with all the crime that goes on that this is a nothing. The guy had it back. But that's not how it worked here.
But the Libertyville police officer that had been investigating the misplaced broken iPod felt that this was serious enough to report to the Lake County States Attorney's office. Somehow a failure to appear warrant was issued for Carl, even though he was never notified that he had a court date or that he was being charged with any sort of crime. That warrant has never been produced by the police or by the court, and we suspect it may never have existed. Lake County is in the northeastern corner of Illinois, just north of Cook County. Lake County is largely suburban. Its violent crime rate is only 1/3 of Cook County's, and dangers to police officers themselves are far less than in Chicago, just 40 miles to the south. Lake County has been in the spotlight lately due to wrongful convictions, coerced confessions, questionable prosecutorial tactics, and a series of deaths that have occurred from police contact or while in custody of the Lake County Sheriff. According to the Officer Down website, there hasn't been a police officer killed by a civilian in Lake County since 1980. Yet lately, encounters with police in Lake County result in civilian deaths with alarming regularity. There's an unofficial crime in this country. It's not a law that's on the books, but it's a crime nonetheless. And that crime is contempt of cop. Sometimes it carries the death penalty, carried out with instant justice by the police on the scene. Sometimes you just get hurt. So what are your rights when you are confronted by the police? What are your rights when the police show up at your door? What are you allowed to do? What are you allowed to say? Well, that all depends on whom you ask.
Of the all-important people. Upon seeing the officers, Valerie greets them outside and closes the door behind her.
What seems to be the problem?
We just need to do a required routine check. Now, if everything's okay inside, could you go ahead and let us take a look?
Everything's under control, officers. Look, I know you're both just doing your jobs, but without a search warrant, I can't let you inside.
Again.
Without a search warrant, I can't let you inside.
Just before I walked out, I could see them. One guy's got his hand on his gun. The other one's shaking what appears to be a can of mace. They're not standing at the front door in a polite way. They're on the sides.
And we start asking each other, what's going on here? What is this about?
We saw them on the security system, and they were acting very odd.
One of the officers tried to get in the side door. You could hear him trying to open it. And the adrenaline started flowing a little bit inside. We were scared. We didn't know what was going on.
When I walked outside to find out what was going on, one of the very first things that I did was I explained to the officers outside that there was a camera, and I actually pointed to it. The reason why that I did that for is because I felt like they wanted to hurt somebody. When I walked outside, I was approached by a male officer. I asked him, "What's going on?" A female officer joins the conversation. They said that they wanted to talk to Carl. I asked, "What's this all about?" They wouldn't tell me. I told them that we've been watching them on our security camera system, as I pointed to the camera. I asked if they had a warrant. They told me no. I said, "What are you doing coming onto people's property and acting like this without a warrant?" I told them that if you don't have a warrant, then you should leave. As I point to each of them, I said, "You can't be doing this." Just before I enter the house, I say, "You don't show up at a man's house without a warrant." And I close the door. I didn't slam it, never swore at them. I just walked back into the house. In the police reports and in the testimony, they made the accusations that I was acting like some kind of an animal, that I was out there and I was, giving them the bird, I was cussing at them, you name it, and none of it's true. The whole thing is completely made up.
It's pretty surprising to learn that the police don't have to have a warrant to show up at your door. Well, they say they don't have to have a warrant. There's actually a law on the books which allows the police to arrest you for an outstanding warrant if you're out in public and it's in the computer. But let's ask this question. If you're going to somebody's house for the sole purpose of serving a warrant, you have no other reason to go there. You haven't chased anybody there. You don't even know if the person that you're looking for is home. If you go to a person's home, which is supposed to be the last bastion of privacy in this society, which it no longer is, why not just bring a copy of the warrant? Meanwhile, back in front of the house, Ashley+Pomazal decides to take a peek into our youngest son's window. We are inside the house viewing this on the security monitors. Our 19-year-old son is playing video games with a friend. Pomazal bangs on the window. Not knowing who is there, he goes to answer it. Pomazal asks if he's Carl, and he tells her he is not. She asks if Carl is home, and he says he'll go check. Klatka comes up the walkway. He is not at the window at all, and yet he writes about the encounter in his police report as if he were right there. Klatka knocks on the door again. Vince and I were debating whether we should even answer the door. Deputy Pomazal calls for reinforcements, not with her police radio, but with her cell phone. Keep in mind that she has no warrant and she has no idea if Carl is in the house. Watch Klatka's flashlight beam move to the right of the screen. This is important because he is moving to the back of the house and he will not be seen by this camera for quite some time. As far as the wiretapping law is concerned, you can't even imagine how surprised we were when we discovered that if you videotape the police, this is in your own home, if you videotape the police, you could go to jail for 15 years.
I decided to grab the camcorder and turn it on because there was something wrong here and it looked like they wanted to hurt somebody.
Ashley+Pomazal does not write about Vince's actual second time coming out of the house in her police report, but surprisingly, Klatka does. He states, shortly thereafter, Vincent came out of the front door frantic, screaming, "What the fuck don't you understand? Get off my fucking property," and slammed the door. But wait, Klatka wasn't even there. And no one could have known that the audio of this encounter would be picked up by the camcorder inside.
Because there were only 2 times. There wasn't 3, 4, 5, or 6 times as the jury was told. Those were lies. 2 times.
In preparation for trial, we wanted to sync the inside video and the outside video to show that only Pomazal was present, and she was 20 feet from the door when Vince came out. Vince did not use any profanity. Pomazal had already decided she was going to arrest Vince, and he certainly didn't slam the door in anyone's face.
What are you doing? Well, you know what? Get off. I'm ready. Good. All right. You're going to jail.
She told me that I was going to jail.
The only problem was that we couldn't use it.
When my attorney found out that Sergeant Janias wrote in his police reports that there was a microphone mounted above the door, which is not true. There's no microphone there. We began to get extremely concerned because the camcorder on the inside of the house actually picked up the audio of the police officer the second time.
The attorneys feared that the audio recording might result in a possible 15-year prison sentence for either Vince or me or both. We're not talking about a murder or a rape or a robbery, but picking up Ashley+Pomazal's voice on the inside camera when she was at our door. and the existence of that made it impossible to show the outside video during the trial. Vince was handcuffed in a sense that he couldn't even use his own video evidence to defend himself against charges.
She just said, "You're going to jail."
Help has arrived for Deputy Pomazal in the person of Sergeant Timothy Janitis, her boss. He is there to assist Pomazal in her quest to see Vince go to jail. But on what charge? It doesn't matter because Vince has committed a contempt of cop offense by asking to see a warrant. We have seen them arrive from the inside monitors. Inside, Vince has moved the camcorder from the piano to the ledge at the front door. Janitis orders Pomazal away from the door.
Just a minute. You know, I always thought that if someone's accused of a crime that they should have their day in court. And I thought that that's what was going to happen after I was charged with battery, causing bodily harm to a police officer, resisting. And when I got into court, it was a huge wake-up call.
The Lake County State's Attorney has two roles, but those two roles can result in a direct conflict of interest. Michael+Waller himself explained it in a campaign video in 2008.
I'm Mike+Waller, your Lake County State's Attorney. For 18 years, it has been my great privilege to serve as Lake County State's Attorney. In addition to serving as Lake County's Chief Law Enforcement Officer, I represent the County of Lake in all civil matters in both state and federal court. For 18 years, I have provided effective legal representation that has kept the county out of needless lawsuits and saved the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. I approach my job in a spirit of innovation and cooperation with my criminal justice partners, including the police, the courts, and social service agencies.
So what does that mean exactly? On the one hand, the state's attorney's responsibility is to prosecute defendants, often on the word of police officers and investigators. On the other hand, the state's attorney protects the county's financial interests, defending those very same officers and investigators when they face civil charges. So how do you suppose they handle it when they fear civil liability when a citizen is harmed by police officers?
At the beginning of the trial, as Deputy Pomazal was testifying, Michael+Waller walked into the courtroom and he sat down directly in front of the judge. He didn't say a single word. He just sat there for about maybe a minute and he just got up and walked out.
Presiding over Vince's case was Associate Judge George+Strickland. He had been a prosecutor for Lake County for 22 years, working for Michael+Waller. Upon Strickland's ascendancy to the bench, Waller praised his former employee, not surprisingly. And here is the man in charge of the deputies who arrived at our door, the Lake County Sheriff, Mark+Curran. He's dressed up like a police officer, but he's really a lawyer. He worked as an assistant state's attorney in Michael+Waller's office. He was elected in 2006 as an opposition candidate, but switched parties in 2008. His old boss, Mike+Waller, couldn't have been happier.
Today is a good day for Lake County, a good day for the Lake County Republican Party. Mark, welcome to the Republican Party. That looks pretty good up there, doesn't it? You know, when I became state's attorney 18 years ago, the first person I hired as an assistant state's attorney was none other than Mark+Curran.
And the prosecutor was a young, ambitious state's attorney, Britta+Peffer, who has since moved up from misdemeanor court to deciding who in Lake County gets charged with a felony.
The evening that I was arrested, I was charged with battery to a police officer causing bodily harm, number one. Number two, I was also charged with resisting arrest by failing to put my hands in back of my back when ordered to do so several times. Number three, obstruction of justice, because they claimed that I knew Carl was here. 2 weeks before the trial, the state's attorney was given a copy of the DVD, which was the inside video. And you would think that after watching it and simply comparing the police reports with the video, something's wrong. Because everything that the police claimed in their police reports and in sworn statements didn't match up.
Even from the inside video evidence, Peffer knew that there were problems with her police officer's story.
Just as the trial begins, just prior to the jury coming into the courtroom, Britta+Peffer, the assistant state's attorney, said to the judge, I spoke with the officer out in the hall. He said that he did not have bodily harm, so we're going to be dismissing charge one. But wait a minute here. This is the charge that I was arrested for, was bodily harm to a police officer. And this is a sworn statement.
I did speak with the officer in the hallway. He did not have any bodily harm, so we are going to be dismissing count number 1 on Vincent+Testa.
But what would have happened if I didn't have this video?
Once the police were shown the video by the state's attorney, I might add, oh, all of a sudden, all that stuff we said about pushing with 2 hands, all that stuff we said about bodily harm, well, there's no bodily harm. But wait, they swore to it. They wrote it up. They put it in sworn statements. No, we'll just change tactics, but we're still going to go with it. Prosecutors have complete personal immunity for anything they say or do while acting in the role of prosecutor. That special legal protection gives prosecutors a tremendous power to use on behalf of the people. Britta+Peffer made a lot of promises to the jury about what she was going to prove. She also deliberately misstated portions of the incident that were clearly contradicted by the video she had already viewed.
Now, Deputy Klatka and Deputy Pomazal did knock on the door, and a woman answered and informed them that defendant Carl Testa was inside the residence.
But that wasn't true. I had never said that Carl was home. It was very important for her to make the case that the police had confirmed that Carl was inside the residence. Otherwise, the entry into the home was illegal.
They confirmed that he was inside, and they, in fact, saw him walking in the kitchen, and they were able to confirm that the individual, the defendant, Carl Testa, who had an active arrest warrant, was inside the residence.
So she repeated Deputy Klatka's false claim of seeing Carl in the kitchen.
Now, at this point, Vincent+Testa is placed under arrest for pushing Sergeant Janitis for slamming the door in his face.
But the video shows clearly that there was no push and that Vince never slammed the door in Sergeant Janitis' face.
And you can hear on the video officers telling the defendant, Vincent+Testa, get on the floor, put his hands behind his back.
She lied about the officer's verbal commands. No one ever said, put your hands behind your back. So she goes through a very long process of eliciting perjury from the police on the stand. She elicited perjury. She shouldn't be an attorney at all, let alone a prosecutor. But if you look at how much trouble they went through over a misdemeanor, and for what? And for what? Can you imagine the kind of trouble they went through to keep Jerry+Hobbs in jail, or to convict Juan+Rivera 3 times? This is what they do. They don't care about the truth, this group up in Lake County. They don't care about the truth. They care about winning, and that's all they care about. First on the stand was Deputy Ashley+Pomazal.
So, in your report when you wrote, "What the fuck do you want?" as being what Carl first says to you, were you mistaken about that, or were you lying?
I was mistaken.
Were you mistaken about anything else in that report, officer?
Not to my knowledge.
And now, officer, when you said that he only slammed the door on you once, were you mistaken there, or were you lying?
I was not lying, so I suppose I was mistaken.
When you wrote in the report it was 2 hands, were you mistaken or lying?
I didn't see it very well. I suppose I was
Officer, I
mistaken.
have to ask you a third time. Is there anything else you were mistaken about in your reports?
I don't recall.
You used the language that Mr. Vincent+Testa pushed Sergeant Unitas, pushed him and caused him bodily harm?
Yes.
Was that a mistake or a lie?
I was mistaken.
You indicated Mr. Testa was wearing heavy clothing?
I did. I marked
That
the
was
wrong
mistaken?
box. I did. It was a mistake.
That was mistaken?
It was a mistake.
Now I have to ask you again, are there any other mistakes that I should know about here?
Not that I can recall.
Okay, so you know mistakes should not be contained within the reports.
That they should not be contained. That doesn't happen every so often.
Okay, and did you tell your sergeant I made a bunch of mistakes in this report? The point which you indicated in the report where he says, "Get off my fucking property," that follows the first time he says on the video, "How can I help you?" Or words to that effect?
I was mistaken.
Is it your testimony the chronology of events is completely mistaken? What she is trying to say right now, it is simply a mistake. After seeing the video, you became aware that there was some mistakes in your report, correct?
Yes.
And did you make any effort to try and correct those mistakes in another report or document them in any way?
No.
Is there anything else that you were mistaken about in your reports?
I don't recall. I hope not.
I don't understand why the judge didn't stop this case and dismiss the charges after hearing the first witness testify. Because clearly, the whole thing was completely made up. It was all lies. But we continued with it.
Deputy Jakub+Klatka took the stand next to tell his version of events. The most damaging part of Jakub+Klatka's testimony was that he claimed he saw Carl inside the kitchen. From here.
I was at there's a little wooded area to the west of the residence.
Okay, it's east of the house, but it's behind the house, and it's a football field away.
Klatka claims that he was in a wooded area while he watched Carl, and that it only took him 10 seconds to get from where he was to the front door. As you can see on the outside video, it didn't take him 10 seconds. It didn't take him 20 seconds. It didn't take him 30 seconds. It took him almost a minute to get from where he was to the front.
Here is the point where Pomazal calls Klatka on her radio, just before she and Unitas barge through the front door. While we wait for him to return, it's a good time to show how the fact of his long trek to the front of the house proves that much of the other testimony were just plain old lies. During the trial, Klatka testified that he took only 10 seconds to get to the door, and that he stood outside and shouted at Carl to get on the ground and put his hands behind his back. Unitas testified that he heard Klatka shouting those commands. Klatka also testified that he threatened to tase Carl, and that he shouted the standard warning of taser, taser, taser. But then he admitted he didn't even have his taser in his hand. Klatka had been called to the door by Pomazal almost a minute ago. Shortly, you will see him on this camera for the first time since his flashlight beam went out of frame earlier. You'll see him running around the corner and straight into the house, where he is picked up on the inside camera. There he is. But since we were unable to show the outside video at trial, the jury never knew that Klatka was so far away, and that he couldn't have identified Carl from such a distance, and that his claim of getting to the door in 10 seconds was just false.
When Sergeant Unitas knocked on the door and I answered it, I was very polite, but I was a little bit agitated with the whole situation because of the way that the police were acting outside. What can I do for you?
Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm their boss.
Okay, good.
Okay? What I'm
You
going
know
to tell
what this is about? This is about
an arrest
iPod.
warrant.
It's about a
I don't care what
$15
it's
iPod.
about. Okay? Here's what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
Okay? Either you or your son are going to jail right now.
Okay, why why would I go to jail? What
Because you're obstructing these police officers.
No.
Okay,
They have
your
a warrant.
son is here.
May I please see the warrant?
The warrant's in the computer.
When I asked him for him to show me a copy of the warrant, which he didn't have, even though he came from a police station where he could have printed it out, he didn't bring one with him. And we always thought that if the police are going to come to your house for no other reason but to serve you with something, whether it could be a summons, it could be an eviction.
In fact, Illinois state law describes paper documents and the fees that local police departments charge for serving them. Among these are summons, garnishment papers, subpoenas, and yes, arrest warrants.
These are all written documents that if they're going to show up with an arrest warrant, why wouldn't they bring the document with them? After all, it's signed by a judge. You know, it's a real piece of paper.
Most police officers do it right.
Marshaled first at a community center in Orland Hills, then took to the streets just before daybreak.
I just got one out of Homewood and out of Linwood, both for larceny.
This is
It's the first Chicago Heights you guys want to hit. I know.
warrant after warrant, house after house.
And a paper warrant for every house.
It's active, it's
So
valid.
then I can't even see it then.
No, because we don't physically have a copy with us.
Well, so I don't even get to see.
You know what,
sir?
Don't play the law
I'm
with
not
me.
playing any
I'm
law.
telling you the law, okay?
And I'm telling you right now, everything, all right, including high definition, and you see that camera right there?
That's fantastic.
There's one there too, okay?
I'm glad.
Good.
That's fantastic. So what I'm telling you again is either one of you two are going to jail right now. Who would you want it to be?
It isn't me, okay? And I'm shutting this door, sir.
No, you're
all
not. No, you're
Are
not.
you telling me that I can't close my door?
That's what I'm telling you.
Oh, really?
Okay, because if there is an active warrant for your son and he knows, and we know he's here, we have the right to make force into your residence.
Oh, really?
But they didn't know if he was there or not.
Really? Okay?
Oh, okay. Well,
that's what I'm telling you.
I have not seen him, okay? This is my house.
Your wife said he was here, and so did your son.
Wait a minute.
Your wife said he was here, and so did your other son.
When Sergeant Janice said that your wife said he was here and so did your son, it turns out that that was an absolute lie. Nobody ever told him that Carl was here. Klatka, which was the third officer, said that he had no contact whatsoever with Janice. Pomazal said, under oath, that she never told him that Carl was here. So while he's at the door, he says that, and I didn't see him either. And that's why I say, wait a minute, who said? It was made up.
Under cross-examination, each of the officers was forced to admit that no one in the house had said that Carl was home, and that no one told Janice anything of the kind.
Take your choice. Take your choice right now.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get, I'll let my phone in. I'm going to get my lawyer.
That's fine.
I'll be right back. No, step outside of my house.
Now you talk.
No.
Now you're going to jail.
They said that I slammed the door on him, opened up the door a second time, took two hands, and hit this officer so hard I caused bodily harm. You'll never see that on this tape. It was made up, like everything else.
Sergeant Janice elaborated on his claims during his testimony in front of the judge and jury. He stated that he stuck his foot in the door and that Vince slammed the door on his foot. Again, the outside video showed that this was entirely false. Janice never stuck his foot in the door, Vince never closed the door on his foot, and Vince never pushed Janice with two hands or with one.
While I was talking to him, the man just walked into the house, grabs onto my left hand while I have my reading glasses in, and he pulls my hand into his chest, and only then he yells, "Now you touched me, now you're going to jail." And I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. He is trying to pull me outside. The other officer, Pomazal, she squeezes by and she's trying to tug me inside. So once pull me outside, once pull me inside.
Here is a slow motion clip of Janitas grabbing Vince's hand and pulling it toward him, which Janitas will call a push that caused him bodily harm. Pomazal comes in from behind and squeezes by in the small entryway, and the tug of war ensues between Janitas and Pomazal. Vince's hand is doing nothing but trying to hold on to his reading glasses. Now let's watch it in real time.
Oh, really? Now you're going to jail because you pushed me. I pushed you.
Get on the fucking ground.
Kitty,
Get on the ground.
Grab that camcorder and save that camcorder.
Get on the ground.
Save that camcorder.
I picked it up. I didn't even know if it was on. I didn't even know if I was pointing it the right way. It was just complete and utter chaos.
Yes, get down. You're resisting arrest. You're resisting arrest.
Sure. Okay, fine.
Oh, good God. She's done me.
What did they do to you? What did you do to you? Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
Oh my
Stop it! Stop it!
Pomazal, because she was very, very strong, rips my arm out of Janitas' grasp. And while she's doing it, she's reaching for her taser. Neither Janitas or Pomazal ever reach for their handcuffs, despite the fact that I'm out like this here because I did not know what to do. Nobody said place my hand in back of my back. And in order to get on the ground, that would have been absolutely impossible because you could see in the video, she's holding me up at the same time she's saying, get on the ground. You can't. And furthermore, there is no place to get on the ground. That area is only 3 feet by 3 feet, and there were 3 of us standing there. It appears that they didn't want me to put my hands in the back of my back. It appears that they just wanted to shoot me with that taser.
I can't even imagine the shock of hearing that taser sound. Now, it doesn't really sound the way on the tape, the way it sounded in real life. In real life, it sounded more like a gun going off. Not that I hear a lot of guns going off, but the way you would imagine a gun going off. And Vince started going down, and I was very confused.
Just in so much pain that everything just opened up.
Sergeant Janitas punched Vince in the head very hard and knocked him out. And then I saw the blood starting to pool on his back, and I was really worried that they'd actually shot him. I thought he was dead.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
You're trying to kill him!
Get back.
What are you doing?
You are trying to kill him!
You two are going to jail! You just stunned my father! What the hell's wrong with you? I didn't even know I was here. I didn't even resist arrest.
Pull the probe out.
He's bleeding!
You're going to jail!
He is
I hope
bleeding!
you go to jail!
Kidding.
This is
He's
corruption
bleeding!
at its best!
5331 tase starts.
He is bleeding!
When I tase you too.
I've been doing
Oh my...
Carl?
Yeah, they didn't know I was hiding. I was hiding.
Put your hands behind your back.
It's on
Get up here.
I was hiding. I had no idea I was in there.
Kitty?
I am...
Kitty, just say that thing.
You need to back up.
Yep.
Back up. Back up. Back up.
Why?
Do you not understand me? Back up.
Why? Are you going to shock him again when he's already subdued?
Just keep the video. You understand
Roll
that?
over to your
Back
side.
up. Keep the video.
Roll over to your side.
Do you understand?
Okay. Stand up.
It's clear that they weren't 100% sure that that video camera was ever on.
All right, Kitty. Step back. Get in the kitchen. Come on.
Randy, go.
I will call Randy immediately.
Mom, I think you're coming to bail us out. These fucking... I think these guys are fucking cocksuckers.
Don't make it any...
What?
Stay on the ground. Stay on the ground.
Oh, they should stand up.
Stay on the ground.
What the fuck is wrong with you guys? You're the fucking Constitution?
Step up. Stand up.
It's called hurt somebody you love to get you.
Fucking...
Good thing William wasn't here. They probably would have tased the baby. It's pretty freaking heartless. Pretty freaking heartless. All over a $15 iPod that you found in the bathroom. Notice the bundle of taser wire that Pomazal is holding. Moments before, Pomazal pulls her taser wire out while walking up to the door to escort Carl out of the house. She's making quite an effort to be certain that this bundle of tangled taser wire is in front of the camera. She doesn't know if or when the camera was ever turned on. What if I hadn't actually videotaped the tasing? Ashley+Pomazal is taking her taser and she starts pulling out the line, making it look as if she tased Vince from very, very far away. Now, why would she do that? She would do that because she didn't want anyone to know, that she had tased Vince at point-blank range in the spine with prongs that were designed to go through 2 inches of clothing, and he was only wearing a t-shirt. After the tasing, 2 inches of wire at the end of her taser. By the time she's done playing with her taser, several feet of tangled wire.
When I was in the Lake County jail, I asked to see the nurse, and I explained to her that my head felt like it was on fire, and that there was a very severe headache, and I asked her for someone to take me to the hospital. She said no, and then she lifted the back of my shirt up and she said, "Yeah, they really got you good," with a smile.
During his testimony, Timothy Janitis claimed he didn't see the tasing occur. Yet here he is staring right at Vince's back as Pomazal deploys the taser. He testified under oath that he couldn't see Carl, but Carl is right in front of him. Janitis testified under oath that he never punched Vince in the head, but he did. But perhaps the boldest untruth he uttered under oath was,
if you're accused of a crime, you think, well, you know what, we'll have a trial and my innocence will be proven. Well, that's the way it looks when you watch TV shows, LA Law and some of the other shows that are out there. But clearly, as you can see, that's not the way it really works.
Although there was a 50-inch plasma television in the courtroom that could have played the video properly, they played the disc on a DVD player set to 4x3 letterbox. This means that the video as played during the trial was distorted, horizontally compressed, and misrepresented the video as it was actually recorded. Here is the actual video shot. Here is what was shown in court. Vince looks larger and more aggressive by virtue of the distortion. Another disadvantage to the defense was that the video equipment in the courtroom lacked certain basic functionalities. It had no fast forward. It had no rewind. There was no slow motion to allow the jury to view the event carefully. The attorneys had to cue up the spot they wanted to show. George+Strickland was annoyed by the playing of the video evidence. He wanted to limit how many times the jury saw the video, despite the fact that the video evidence was crucial to Vince's defense. But there were other setbacks as well.
My attorney walked up to the judge during the trial and said, "Judge, there is a complaint that we don't have our copy of."
Klatka wrote it and then signed it. But he wasn't there to witness the alleged battery. So he crossed out his name and had Pomazal sign it.
Now, I always thought that your defense should have copies of everything. In this case, the judge had it. The state's attorney had it, but the defense didn't. Now, when my attorney was asking about that, the state's attorney jumped up and objected to it. And at one point, the judge is actually arguing with my attorney that the sworn complaint is not a sworn complaint.
But wouldn't a judge who has been a prosecutor for decades already know that this is a sworn statement? Wouldn't he have used these thousands of times before to charge people with crimes? Why didn't the judge stop the trial at this point? Here is a complaint written and signed by Deputy Pomazal in her own handwriting. Here is Klatka's handwriting again. Compare them side by side. The handwriting in these two complaints is obviously from the two different deputies as opposed to the one deputy who signed them both. Why does it matter? Because the police deputies are not allowed to collaborate when preparing their reports. But if someone didn't tell Klatka what to write, how else would he know how to construct a narrative about alleged incidents that he couldn't possibly have witnessed? He wrote that he was at the window with Pomazal. But the outside video proves that he was not at the window when Pomazal spoke to our youngest son. Klatka wrote about the second time that Vince came outside to talk to them. But only Deputy Pomazal was there. Klatka had already made his way to the wooded area 300 feet behind the house.
My attorney showed to the judge the actual police reports, and it was brought to the judge's attention that each of the officers had almost identical word-for-word sentences, even down to the actual punctuations. And the judge ruled that although they are similar, they aren't the same.
But they were the same. The officers collaborated when writing their reports. When the prosecution rested, the defense made a motion for directed verdict, asking the judge to dismiss all charges based on lack of credible evidence. Strickland dismissed the resisting arrest charge against Carl. He said that he would not dismiss the charges against Vince. But Carl wasn't the one who was illegally attacked, tased, and beaten. Civil liability in Carl's case was minimal. The judge would not allow the jury to know why Carl was no longer a defendant, allowing the jury to possibly infer that Carl may have pleaded guilty or possibly even agreed to testify for the prosecution, which was not the case. Defense counsel requested that Carl at least be allowed to sit at the defense table so as not to give the wrong impression to the jury. But Strickland thought that to allow that would be lying to the jury. An astounding statement after hours of police testimony that was clearly not truthful.
The reason why I didn't testify all comes down to the wiretapping law.
Jonitis clearly had this in mind when he wrote in his police report that he observed some type of microphone above the door.
My attorney thought that if I were to go and testify, that they would try to entrap me in reference to the audio, and I would have been charged with a felony then. So the risk was too high.
During her final rebuttal and closing arguments, Britta+Peffer introduced a new theory, which was not a part of the trial. She claimed that Vince had intentionally set the police up in order to sue them.
When watching that video and looking at the defendant's demeanor and actions, I ask that you take that in the light of the last statement made on the videotape. I'm going to sue the police department. Consider his statement.
What? No one said they were going to sue the police department. Peffer made that up.
And of course, knowing full well that the camera placed there this last time, he goes up to the door and, "What can I do for you guys?" Do you think that's consistent with how he answered the door the first 4 times?
First 4 times? Peffer's intentional exaggeration is designed to inflame the jury.
Of course it's not. He knows full well he's being videotaped, and he knows full well what he's hoping to use the videotape for.
And how could you possibly set the police up when you tell them that there's a video camera going? Not once, but you tell them twice. I don't understand that. I decided to grab the camcorder and turn it on because there was something wrong here and it looked like they wanted to hurt somebody.
So keep that in mind when you're watching the video and looking at the defendant's demeanor. What motive he might have to be sugar sweet and making eye contact with the video and saying, "What can I do for you this time?" Even though he knew full well that the last 4 times he was profane with the officers, told them to get off his fucking property, and that they were not going to take his son into custody.
What was said has nothing to do whether I was innocent or guilty of the charges.
Furthermore, we had reason not to engage in setting up the police, as Peffer argued. Just 6 weeks before our ill-fated encounter with the Lake County Sheriff's Police, we had realized a long-time dream and opened up a family business, a toy store in downtown Libertyville. The last thing we needed or wanted was a conflict with the authorities. I didn't want any negative publicity for the toy store that we had just opened up. This whole thing started in Libertyville. I didn't want to make trouble for the Libertyville government, the police. We didn't want that. We wanted to bury this thing because we did not want the bad publicity. That's why it never went up anywhere until about 1.5 years later. And the reason it went up, because we were put through the ringer in our so-called justice system.
So I sat there, and I couldn't even testify to defend myself, even though the videotape clearly shows the whole thing was made up. Lie after lie after lie after lie. It was all made up. When the jury came back with the guilty verdict, I was absolutely devastated. I couldn't believe it. They just walked in, they beat me up, they tased me, they punched me out, and then I got framed for it.
But the jury didn't have all of the facts. There was an incident that none of the police officers included in their reports. I'm just about to play back the video, or see if I even had video to play back, and then there's a knock on the door yet again. What are they going to tell me? Are they going to tell me that they're taking Vince to the hospital? Are they going to tell me that Vince has collapsed outside? What are they going to tell me? So I go to the door. I open the door, and there they are telling me that they forgot their flashlight, and they're going to come in and get it. Well, I'm not going to fall for that twice. And I told them very specifically, no, you're not coming in my house. You haven't been invited in. You've gotten the subject of your warrant. Now, if you left something here, I'll get it. But Ashley+Pomazal sticks her foot in the door after I told her she was not invited in. Why? Because she wanted me to shut that door on her foot so she would have an excuse to come back in here. And if you ask me, they left that flashlight behind on purpose. They wanted to come back and get that videotape, get that camera, and destroy the evidence. That's the real reason they were coming back. I will find your flashlight. Do you mind if I go get it? All right, I'll go. What does it look like? It looks like a flashlight. Open it up. I didn't invite you in. You've already gotten the subject of your warrant. I will get your flashlight. Okay, now I'm not
Get the flashlights! What don't you understand?
I understand you tried to kill my husband. That's what I understand.
It's less than deadly force.
Okay, no it's not. Read this. Have you ever been tased, ma'am?
Yeah, I have.
Many police officers are tased during training, but they aren't much safer than the rest of us.
Andy Butler knew it as taking a ride. As a rookie in the Dallas Police Department, he says he felt peer pressure to allow himself to be zapped, thinking it would smart a little, never imagining it would be life-changing. A few hours later, in intense pain in the emergency room, the X-ray didn't look good. Butler couldn't feel his arm. A doctor delivered the news.
He told me he had some news that I wasn't going to like, and I had herniated 3 discs in my neck, and one of them was pressing on the spinal cord.
An injury that would leave the father of 2 after surgery with 2 metal plates in his neck, in constant pain.
I feel it every hour of every day.
Butler has joined a growing number of police officers across the country who are suing Taser, claiming the company failed to adequately warn officers and their departments about the risks, downplaying the possibility for injury.
The practice seems to be designed to give police officers a false sense of security when using tasers in the field. Between January 2009 and May 2012, 174 people have been killed by police using tasers in the United States. Here are their names. They are people of all races. They are male and female. They range in age from 15 to 65. No one is safe from the possibility of perishing by a police taser. They are victims of instant justice. The concept of the taser was sold to the American people under false pretenses. We were told it would be used in situations where the police would otherwise need to use lethal force. More and more, police are using tasers as a first resort, often failing to follow proper protocols. The taser is not a form of non-lethal force, and the more police use their tasers, the more people will die. Stunned by the verdict, we spent hundreds of hours poring over all the trial materials. We compared every line of the testimony to the police reports in the video. We documented over 80 clear and definite discrepancies between the police reports, video, and testimony.
During my post-trial motion, we brought several issues to the judge. Each of them, he denied.
Then Vince was shocked by the discovery that the courtroom video problem spilled over into the jury room.
At the end of the trial, the jury was sent back to the deliberations room, and they were given a copy of the DVD. It turns out that the video playback gear in the jury room was an old-fashioned CRT television set, a picture tube set. Now, the video that was given to them was a widescreen DVD. What that means is you can't fit a widescreen image on an old-fashioned CRT television set unless you chop the sides off or you compress it. Those are the only ways. Those are the only 2 ways you could possibly see it. Either way, it's been altered.
The top picture is a still from the video in full widescreen. The bottom picture is the same screenshot as seen on an old-fashioned television. The bottom picture is missing critical information, the physical action of Janitas grabbing Vince's hand and pulling it toward his own chest, and thus making the first physical contact between them.
There are 2 ways you could show it. Either the sides of the video get chopped off, or the video gets compressed. Either way, the video has been changed.
So the jury never saw the video in a true-to-life aspect ratio as it was recorded. It was either missing 27% of the entire picture, or the picture was distorted.
When we brought this to the attention of the judge actually blamed me for the fact that I brought a video in that couldn't be played on the court equipment.
Almost 8 months after Vince was convicted, he faced Judge George+Strickland for sentencing. Despite the fact that Vince had no criminal record whatsoever, Judge Strickland's sentence to Vince was harsh due to Vince having what Strickland called a personality quirk that he just didn't like. 200 hours of public service, equivalent to 5 full-time weeks of labor. Over $1,300 of fines and court costs. To undergo an anger management assessment. To to make a $250 donation to Crime Stoppers. And Vince was ordered to write a letter of apology to the police. The prosecutor in this case, Britta+Peffer, had the audacity to say at sentencing that it was a good thing that nobody got hurt. It gives you a little insight into the way she thinks about people, about the citizens. Yeah, she's somebody. The police are somebody. The judge is somebody. But the citizens, we're nobody.
There was a story that I read several months back where a woman in the city threw a bottle at a cop, hit the cop in the head. The judge only sentenced her to 50 hours. And it turned out that a security camera, out of all things, caught it, and that never happened either. But that was only 50 hours. This judge gave me 200 hours. Because this judge was at the end of his bench, hanging over, while he's screaming at me almost at the top of his lungs. And my attorney told me, he said, you know, Vince, I thought you were going to jail. The worst part of my sentence is when I was ordered by Judge George+Strickland to write a letter of apology to the two officers who came to the house, tased me in the back, slammed my head down on the floor, and then punched me out. I was absolutely shocked that I would be ordered to do something like that. And if I didn't, then they were going to hold me in contempt. They were going to bring me back in, and then I would have been sentenced and sent to jail.
Given what the officer said in their reports and sworn statements, it is clear that if there had been no video, their desire was to charge Vince with felony battery to a police officer, causing bodily harm. Without that video, instead of being here with his family, Vince might have been imprisoned for up to 7 years on that charge alone.
What happened to me could easily happen to you too. And it makes me wonder about all the thousands upon thousands of people who are convicted by a jury and sent to jail. How many of them are innocent?
As you all know, Juan+Rivera was wrongly accused and prosecuted. Yes, convicted for a crime he did not commit.
First of all, I want to thank God. Thank all of you for being here today to represent the community. You know, the wrong that has happened in this community, North Chicago and Lake County. As you just heard, I was wrongly convicted for a crime that I did not commit. I served almost 20 years, okay, in prison. Got stabbed twice because of this case. I suffered, but today it stops. That's why I'm here. To show everyone that God is beautiful.
Northwestern University has a thing called the Innocence+Project. And they have begun to document thousands of cases where these people who've been sitting in jail for 10, 15, 20 years, 22 years, didn't do it.
You know, we in the United States have the best judicial system in the world. And that's not just my opinion, it's a matter of fact. And it's a fact that's proven every year by the number of countries that invite judges and lawyers from the United States to their country to show them how to make their judicial system more like ours. And there's a lot of reasons that we have the best judicial system in the world. I just want to talk about one of those reasons today. And it involves a concept that really is hard for other countries to grasp, but it's a concept that every American, including every school child in America, understands and appreciates, and that's the concept of judicial independence. That being a judge's ability to fairly and impartially decide a case based just on what's presented in court to the judge, and not to have the judge's decision controlled by some outside person or influence or power.
A Lake County defense attorney, Jed Stone, was quoted in the New York Times describing the court system in Lake County as an echo chamber due to the fact that so many of the judges have backgrounds as prosecutors in Michael+Waller's office.
And this idea of judicial independence was very important to the people who found our country. The people who wrote the Declaration of Independence, the people who wrote the Constitution. And it was important to them because they learned the hard way what happens when you have a dependent judiciary rather than an independent judiciary.
At the beginning of the trial, as Deputy Pomazal was testifying, Michael+Waller walked into the courtroom and he sat down directly in front of the judge. He didn't say a single word. He just sat there for about maybe a minute, and he just got up and walked out. And right after that, things totally changed. Britta+Peffer, the assistant state's attorney, thinks that we shouldn't be allowed to question why the police are at our front door, that we should just open up the door and let them walk in.
If everyone is allowed to sit and question the police and not let them in the home and not follow their instructions and directions, we wouldn't have an orderly society.
Imagine what they would have said or what they would have done if we didn't have a video on. This wasn't a harmless thing. My attorney told me, he said, you know what, Vince, I thought you were going to jail.
Eugene+Grueber was guilty of contempt of cop, and he died. He had to be held up for his mugshot. But what did he do? He didn't comply immediately with vague or perhaps non-existent orders that were given to him by officers. Darrin+Hannah was guilty of contempt of cop. He's also dead. Why? Because he bruised a cop's ego? What happened here that night has nothing to do with pushing police officers, with resisting arrest. All it has to do with is contempt of cop. Hey, I'm a cop, I show up at your door. Janitas says on the tape, don't you play the law with me, I tell you the law. Now as citizens, we don't believe that. We believe that there really are laws, and there really is a system. But you know what? We're wrong and he's right. He is the law, and he can mete out whatever justice he wishes to right on the spot, and nobody is going to challenge him. Now, the citizens of this state have to ask themselves, is that really what we want? Is that acceptable? Do you believe in a system where the police can hand out whatever justice they wish to on the spot? And to illustrate this even further, in the transcript, Judge George+Strickland says, you were tased on the scene. That's part of your punishment. In other words, the judge in the legal system advocates punishment, instant justice on the spot without due process. As a citizen, ask yourself this question: is that acceptable?
Do I think that all judges and all cops and all state attorneys are bad? No. I think that there are a lot of very good people out there, but we do have some bad apples.
Citizens of Lake County, Illinois gathered on a Saturday in April of 2012 to protest the killing of Darrin+Hannah by North Chicago police officers. A few hundred showed up, but in a county of more than 700,000 people, why weren't more motivated to protest? Was it because they just didn't think that this could happen to them? Police had responded to a domestic disturbance call, and Hannah was beaten and tased, and later died of his injuries. Do the people who are not here believe that if they were in Hannah's place, they would have fared better? Do they believe that it is all right for the police to break the law because that somehow makes them safer? Do they think that the police could never show up at their home unexpected? Do we seem a little bit angry? Do I seem a little bit angry? Yeah, I am a little bit angry. And sometimes I get a little bit emotional talking about it. But I'm not as angry about what happened to us as I am when I imagine that this is happening elsewhere.
What do we have? What do we want? All right.
I'm really angry about Eugene+Grueber. I'm really angry about Darrin+Hannah. And part of that is selfish, because it makes me believe that Vince could have ended up the same way. But I know that somebody else will end up the same way.
Amen.
They marched for Darrin+Hannah in North Chicago, but you don't see the citizens of Grays Lake marching for Eugene+Grueber. He's every bit as dead.
People are upset, but we are going to get justice. We are going to get victory.
Why? Why don't people care that this is happening? Just because it isn't happening to them?